Okay, welcome back to this week's podcast, and we're going to cover the big subject of why decision makers are ignoring you this week. And this is a really interesting topic. It's a topic that a number of people have asked me questions around, and it's ignored. People get ignored in two ways initially. Firstly, with initial conversations and outreach, and then secondly, once you've sent a proposal to them and people ignore you afterwards. But in this case, we're going to mainly focus on why they're ignoring you to start with, and we'll try and unpick some elements around that. And like I always say to you in podcasts, if you've not listened to the podcast before, welcome, great to have you on board. If you have listened as a regular listener, then you'll know that I talk a lot about our job in sales is to look at what we can do better ourselves to win business, and invariably why people and decision makers are ignoring you is because we've not done some things we need to do. So let's dig into what they are. And the reason being, I was asked a question by someone a couple of weeks ago that said, I've sent an email, I've sent a voicemail, I've sent a LinkedIn message to a person, a decision maker, a chief at a company, and I've not heard back. What should I do? Why am I not hearing back? And the person was quite frustrated about it. I actually said to them, if you're only doing three connections to that person, then three is not going to be enough. But they were quite critical of quite despondent, I think is the best word to use, that they weren't hearing back. And I said, well, these are some of the things you've got to consider. So point number one is this: you have to remember to speak their language, and I call it get inside their world. If you're dealing with a chief person, and let's say it's a chief executive, a chief revenue officer, chief people officer, whatever the senior decision or director at a business, a person, whatever their title is, you have to remember that their world is not probably in the detail. And I talk to people about there are three levels of people in organizations. Level one are decision makers. Level two are influencers. And level three are doers, or those implementers, for want of a better phrase. And the reality is, if you are talking to a doer or an influencer, their focus, as in any organization, is going to be in a slightly different way to the decision maker. So let's just say you're trying to sell a system to a company. The implementer, the level three person, is interested in how that system will operate day to day. They're interested in how easy is it then for them to log on and update information, which is important, but is key to maybe that person's role. The influencer in that situation would be interested in maybe how much reporting they can get out from the system. What are they able to see in terms of data? Maybe that person's a manager of some of the people that are doing the work, and they want to see reports as to how many people have accessed it, or how can they turn on and off access to something. Whereas the decision maker around that system is not really going to be interested in the features and the functions and the details of how the system works. They're going to be interested in what time savings can it give them as a business, or what access to new contracts or customers can it give them, or how can it make them save them time, or how can it open up new revenue streams. And so you've got to remember that different people in different layers of organizations will have a different series of thoughts that go on in their world. Now, it's not to say that a decision maker won't want to know some of the detail. Some decision makers are quite analytical and they want to know things, or they've got a particular interest in a subject area. But I see so many salespeople that start talking around features and benefits of their solution to decision makers, and decision makers that's just not in their world. That's not in their languages. So you've got to focus on the outcomes for the business if you're trying to sell and engage at a decision maker level. So focus on, like I say, what's the return on investment going to look like? What savings is it going to give them? How is it going to help their company go forward? How is it going to enable them to earn more or be more productive? So start by first off thinking and talking in their language and get yourself in their world. And this is hard sometimes, because if you're not in their world, if you're not an executive, the biggest challenge for you as a salesperson or person trying to do this is you don't necessarily know what those pressures are. But do you know what? You've got the internet is your friend. You can search for it. You can search online from resources to find out. Search what does if you're selling to a chief people officer, search, go onto ChatGPT, search what does a chief people officer do? What would be the stresses that a chief people officer would have? What would be the key concerns that a chief people officer would have? And start to see the information that comes through to you. And it won't be, does the feature of X, Y, and Z system work? It'll be about bigger issues. So the first thing I can say to you is if you're getting ignored, it probably means that the messages that you're sending are not resonating with that person at that level. And I've got working with a client at the moment, and we're talking to finance directors, and we're talking to finance directors around the big issues that those finance directors are facing. So, for example, I'm recording this today, and in the UK, it's just become more expensive to employ people. So one of the messages that we're going in with is we know that you are facing some challenges when it comes to extra costs for employing people. And on a business of, say, 300-400 people, that could be £500,000 a year on the bottom line. I want to talk to you about some solutions that can help you with that. So when you talk at a level that person resonates with and figures that are costing them or that have an impact on their business, they're going to be more inclined to discuss and discuss that with you. So first and foremost is get inside their world, speak their language, what they'll gain from you, and remember that, and say that to them, and say to them, look, in your role, you're not going to be focused on the detail. What you're focused on are the bigger picture issues such as X and Y. Let me talk through some of those challenges and how we can sort of help you overcome these. And a second point to that is, if you really want decision makers to engage with you, give insights to the value, to the problems they've got that help that person at that level engage and do things. So if you're engaging, for example, with a chief people officer, sharing a report that's been done around the future of the workforce in the next 5 years is going to make that person think, wow, this person helps me. They're quite useful in what they do. And that links on to my second point, which is not proving your value. So the reason that they're ignoring you at the moment is that they don't think you're of value to them, and you haven't proved your value to them in what you've shared with them or what you've sent them. And these people get hundreds and hundreds of pitches per day. They get so many people that are asking them for their time and information and to do things. And they literally get inundated with people trying to do things with them. And you've got to ask them your question, why should they treat you any differently? And you're just another salesperson to them because you're not proven valuable. You're not proven helpful. You're not talking about the big issues that they face. So one of the key ways in which you can add value is I have this great phrase that I created called show sales value before sales vanity. So show sales value before sales vanity. And sales vanity is, oh, look at us, we do this, rather than sales value is, I'm working with finance directors at the moment, and they're telling me that the top 3 things they're frustrated with are this, this, and this. I've created a resource that helps you solve those 3 issues. Can I share that with you? Now, you may not get a reaction and response, but that's far more valuable than saying, by the way, finance director, do you want to buy our solution of X? You're not giving value. You have to give some value. If you give value to people, then they're going to be far more inclined to think, okay, who is this person? What are they doing? Okay, they understand our big challenges and concerns. Okay, well, this is something to look at. And by the way, the internet again, websites are your friend, okay? Social media is your friend. Lazy salespeople don't search for information. Whereas if you've got the name of a finance director you're trying to engage with, type their name into Google, type their name into ChatGPT if you want to. See what information comes back from them. What have they commented on in the press recently? Is there a public statement they've made? Is there a profile on the social media that talks about an issue that they're passionate about? When you start engaging with an audience and you start to look at what they've talked about and then start to connect your message to be able to engage with that person based on that subject and offer value about it, then you're going to become someone of use. So again, a practical example of that, say you're going after finance directors and you've searched on a finance director and they've talked about maybe in a public environment about how the extra costs of employing someone is going to hurt their bottom line. If you then as a salesperson are going in and saying, okay, here are 5 ways in which you can save money on, five or three simple ways to be able to recoup the extra cost of employing someone that you could implement in your business. And I've looked at your business so-and-so, and I believe from looking at the information, I believe you could do this. That person's not going to guarantee a response, but they're going to think, wow, they've gone out of their way to do that. And if the message is delivered in a proper way, they're going to think, okay, this person's quite helpful. Who are they again? And it's going to create some value for them. So just make sure you focus on proving some value, creating some value. And if you don't be surprised that you get binned off and deleted, ignored. You've got to be consistent and persistent, but persistent with value. Persistently sharing ideas, persistently sharing things that are going to make that person think, okay, these people are useful and helpful, and it's going to increase your chance of success. There's no guarantee, but it's going to increase your chances. So the point number 3 around decision makers are ignoring you is simply an issue of timing. Your timing is off. And I'll tell you a real story of a prospect that I was working with for I have a outsourced sales business called Growth Resourcing, and we provide sales people to pick up the phone and have conversations. If you're a business owner and you want someone to pick up the phone, we can help you. And I was doing a proposal with a prospect, and I sent them a proposal, and I did what I normally do, and I arranged the call, and they couldn't make the call. And they ghosted me, really. And I was a bit like, wow, okay, this does happen. It does happen. But even people like myself who are pretty used to that and pretty used to selling. And I approached it, and I sent a value-based follow-up for a couple of times. And then I sent them another email. And I basically wasn't asked. I just said, hey, sounds like this now is not the right time for you. Or sounds like you've got some other priorities at the moment, and I'll leave you to it. And they came back with, I'm so sorry for the silence. We've just had a load of other stuff going on. Still want to look at it. And we arranged to speak at the end of April. But the point being is they just had other stuff going on in their world. And I talked, there's a video, or there's a podcast I've shared called PIP. And one of the key things you've got to remember in any sales situation there are 3 words that I think are critically important when it comes to sales and winning business. And those words are problem. It's a P for problem, impact, what impacts it having on their business, and the final one is priority. And sometimes the priority of people is just they've got other fish to fry right now. Reed Hastings, who is the chief executive of Netflix, had this great quote that said, the job of an executive is to know what fires to leave burn. So in other words, they've got lots of stuff to do, but they've got to focus on things that are the most important based upon what the business requires at a certain point in time. So I really encourage you to think about understanding that it just might be a timing solution. Most salespeople quit after 1 or 2 times or 3 or 4 times. I did a survey on LinkedIn. And by the way, if you're not connected on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn, James White Sales. You'll find me there. I'll put a link in the show notes as well. And I did a survey, and I think the survey was 67% of people only engage 1 to 6 times. Whereas the stats show you that you need, I think 80% of sales are done on the 7th to the 12th interaction. So if you're not engaging regularly, then you're going to lose out. So build yourself a workflow, a cadence. That's what we help people do, that enables you to communicate with that person consecutively over a period of time. And it may well be that in the month that you engage, they're busy with other stuff. But if you carry on doing with things in month 2 or month 3, your timing will be better. So follow up over a period of time, obviously with value, like I've said in point 2, but make sure that you are focusing on building that credibility and that impact and being valuable to them, being in their world, and doing that consistently is going to stand you a far better chance of engaging and working with them. And the final 2 points around why you're getting ignored by decision makers, the 4th point is one that and I'll be honest with you, this is an area where I've sometimes struggled as a business owner when in the work that I do. And I always have to really take a step back and look at this. And that's that you haven't articulated well enough what your solution does. So, you haven't spent some time really finessing the words and looking at what that you do and the words and to come together and provide a real punchy outcome and detail of what it is you're putting together. And so, if you've not been able to share your solution or be articulate enough about what you do, then spend a little bit of time looking at that. It's taken me, I'm still not there with it, again, in my businesses, we've done lots of things around what is it we actually do and how does it work? And that crafted message. And if you can't articulate, there's that whole obvious conversation that people used to talk about, the elevator pitch, which is if you were in the elevator for 30 seconds with someone you want to communicate with, what would you say to them? And the challenge sometimes is knowing what that is. And it's a great idea to write down what your pitch outline is so that you can practice it and know that when it comes to the right time, you can share a bit about what you do and how you do it. And if you haven't articulated well enough what it is or the outcomes that it has, then people are going to sometimes think, well, I don't need that right now. Whereas, for example, in my growth resourcing business, we will articulate quite clearly, are you frustrated that your sales team don't pick up the phone enough? Yes, I am. Okay, great. We solve that. Okay, great. It makes sense. Or are you frustrated that you can't win business as a business owner without you being involved? Yeah, I am frustrated with that. Okay, great. That's what we do. So being able to really articulate your service offering well enough, or product offering well enough is another critical factor. And they're going to ignore you because they just think this doesn't make sense. And I've seen so many people with so many wordy, verbose messages that make me go, I don't even get that, what it is. So try again. ChatGPT can be your friend. Take your current offering and put it into ChatGPT and say, make this smaller, make this shorter, and see what it comes up with. And then the final thing that related to why decision makers are ignoring you is you simply didn't make enough impact on them. And what I mean by impact, what impact is you remember things you remember. Now, there's a guy, Brad Burton, actually. I'll say Brad, he's a connection I have, someone I know, and he's a great, very much a motivational speaker. I remember, he's got a different way of doing things, but I remember Brad coming into a network event once, wearing a pink t-shirt and a vuvuzela, and literally all the people on the stands were all quiet and we were talking, and this guy came in with on a pink t-shirt and went round everywhere, and everyone was like, wow, he got noticed. Now, I'm not saying it was right or wrong that he made an impact, but people were like, oh, who's this guy? He made an impact. And one of the things that you're struggling to do is you're struggling to maybe make an impact is because you're not standing up and being visible enough to that person. So, one of the methods that I talk about a lot is video prospecting. And there was some great examples. I remember there was a great example of someone that's a video prospect and enables you to share a video with your prospect on what you do and having a conversation with them, whereas they can see a picture of you. So it's sort of like a cross between cold calling and an email. And there was this great example of a guy that was trying to sell into gymnasiums. And on the video, he was doing literally push-ups with a barbell, and was saying to the person, I'm going to do 30 of these if you will give me a meeting. And at the end of the video, he's trying to push up. He said, please give me a meeting. In the end, the guy found it quite funny, and he thought, okay, this is quite interesting. It makes an impact. I'm working with another customer at the moment, and we're sending what I call a bulky, chunky direct mail piece. We're sending something in the post to them that will be quite impactful to their target audience of people. So the other key thing is you've got to make an impact with them. You've got to make them think, okay, this is different. This is a great way to do that. Again, is with the company that we're working with in Oxfordshire at the moment. We're sending them a box with some stuff inside that's recorded delivery and signed for. So it's not like a normal letter. It's something they're going to have to sign for. And they're going to look, what's in this box? It looks like a present. Now, of course, that's more expensive to send. But if the return on investment, we're going to send out 30. If we get it as a test to start off with, but if we get 3 or 4 meetings from that and one customer, then it will have paid for itself time and time again. So the question is sometimes you've got to think about making an impact, and you've got to be a bit brave and work out how you can make an impact with other people in a way that doesn't piss them off, though, but the way that makes them think, okay, who is this person? Gets them on side, because they see so many people. And the reality is you're one of the hundreds of people that are engaging with them. So how can you stand out is the key thing. So I'm not saying you want to go and do what Brad did and wear a pink t-shirt with a vuvuzela at their desk in their office, but how can you make an impact? How can you stand out? How can you be memorable that's going to make them think, okay, this person's someone I want to engage with? So look, there are some 5 simple points on why decision makers are ignoring you. It is frustrating, it is tough, but what I would say to you is this: please don't, expect to get results, especially when you're engaging with people for the first time, initially, straight away. Cold outreach takes time. I talk to people about it taking 2 to 3 months of consistent action on a regular basis. The Chinese bamboo tree story. The Chinese bamboo tree goes in the ground, does nothing for 4 years, and then suddenly when it comes out of the ground, it grows, I think it's like 6 meters every 2 weeks or whatever else. It grows a ridiculous figure once it comes out of the ground. But the reality is it doesn't do anything for 4 years. And sometimes cold prospecting is like that. We have to do the work initially when no one's looking, when there's no response, when there's no engagement, but we do that work to then get us to the point where we can then take advantage. So just bear in mind that's going to take some time, but make sure that you speak their language. Make sure that you really understand their situation. Make sure you prove some, you show some value to them, and understand that timing can be a challenge. Remember those words, PIP, and also think about the way in which you can make an impact with them, but also be in a position where you can, articulate what you do well enough, and it's going to hopefully enable you to knock on the door of a decision maker and get the result you want. So, as I always do, hope that's been helpful for you. If it is, let me know. I'd love to have your comments. Please, if you do enjoy this, please rate the podcast. It helps me so much. It helped me get some more guests on. It'll help me do greater podcast work to share the stories and ideas with you. So please, if you like the podcast, just give that rating a little, get that star rating a push for us. That would be fantastic. But as I always do, I finish the podcast on an inspirational story. And I wanted to do the story today of an Italian gentleman, and an Italian gentleman called Giuseppe Paterno. And Giuseppe Paterno was growing up in Sicily in the 1930s, so he had a lot of challenge with poverty and the wars, and supporting a family. And he had this desire and goal to get a university education. And of course, when he was younger, that didn't happen. But now, at 96, he's become Italy's oldest graduate. And I think this is an incredible story. So Giuseppe Paterno, at 96, became a graduate. And he became a graduate of, he literally, I'm trying to remember exactly where he became a graduate of, where he, as I say, he had his dream come true. And he became a graduate, and I can't remember what he exactly. There we go. Is in the Department of Philosophy at Palermo. So he became a graduate at the age of 96. And I think, wow, what an inspirational story! A man who wanted to become a graduate and get a degree. Life didn't give him that chance, but he never gave up on his dream, and at 96 he did. So if you're thinking, oh, it's too late to do anything now, whatever age you are, unless you're Giuseppe's age, you can always do it. So there's the inspirational story for this week, Giuseppe Paterno. But that's it for the podcast this week. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, as I say, give us a mention or share with other people. But I can't wait to share another episode with you next week. But in the meantime, stay safe, stay well, and keep smiling. See you soon. Take care.